Hello and welcome to today's webinar called Take Back Control of Your Funnel with an ABM Strategy. I'm Carol Kroll, Editor-in-Chief of Demand Gen Report, and I'll be your moderator for this presentation. Today's Top of the Funnel webinar will shed light on how ABM will help accelerate your funnel, how to operationalize for ABM, Radius's own ABM story, and finally, the ABM metrics you want to measure. And we encourage the audience today to follow along and share your thoughts and feedback during the webinar on social media. You can use this hashtag LLS16 and you can connect with Demand Gen Report, with Radius, and with Sherry Johnston, our featured speaker today, as well as myself at the following Twitter handles. Today's session is actually the first in our 2-week-long Lead Lifecycle series, where we're covering a variety of trends, challenges, and strategies to help B2B organizations accelerate their funnel throughout, from top to middle to bottom. And future sessions in the next 2 weeks will definitely cover topics as diverse as optimizing email campaigns, how to align sales and marketing to boost conversions, and the best ways to track content engagement. If you missed any of these sessions and would like to learn more, you can check out the on-demand recordings for each session, all of which can be found at the link you see here on the screen. So for those of you who may be new to Demand Gen Report, here's a quick overview. We're an online media company. We publish daily news, a weekly email newsletter, special reports, original research, and a rich menu of additional resources. And if you haven't done so already, please join more than 40,000 subscribers to the weekly newsletter by going to Demand Gen Report and signing up today. For today's presentation, we're using the On24 platform. During the presentation, you can access all of the information you need right here from the platform toolbar. And we encourage you to ask our presenter questions. You can type in questions throughout the presentation. You simply click the Q&A widget in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and we'll do our best to get all your questions answered during the Q&A segment at the end of the session. Our speakers also have team members standing by to field additional questions through the Q&A widget. So if we don't have a chance to get to yours, our speakers will follow up with you directly after the webinar. And in the lower right-hand corner, you see the download for today's resources. You can download any resources there. And then you'll see the Twitter conversation happening in the left-hand column. We're slated to go about 30 minutes today, with 10 minutes or so reserved for Q&A following the presentation. So be sure to submit those questions using the Q&A widget as they come up. And now I'm very pleased to introduce our featured speaker for today's session. Sherry Johnston is Senior VP of Marketing at Radius. Prior to Radius, Sherry led demand generation for OpenDNS and DemandBase. She frequently speaks as a thought leader on B2B marketing topics, from ABM to integrated marketing, as well as marketing technology. Sherry received an Eloqua Marquee for integration innovation, and she has a BS in marketing from Portland State University. Without further ado, Sherry, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thank you, Carol. Excited to be here today to talk to everyone. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, account-based marketing. I'm very passionate about this topic of having been able to put in an account-based marketing strategy and program at the last 3 organizations I've been at. I am a big fan of the impact that it can have, both from a sales and marketing alignment perspective, the improvements I've seen on ROI of my campaign spend, and as well as just massive improvements on the conversion rates throughout my funnel. So that being said, I've also been challenged with the change that can go along with implementing an ABM strategy and the obstacles to getting it successful. So I wanted to share some of my learnings along my own journey to give folks a roadmap for how you can really get from A to B and accelerate your success with ABM. So I'm briefly going to go over how ABM will actually accelerate your funnel. Today, I know a lot of you folks that are attending this are probably already briefed on this topic and are interested in ABM, or you wouldn't be attending this. There's a lot of content out there on why ABM is a good approach. So I'll briefly talk about that, but then really dive into the meat of it and sharing our own Radius ABM story. One from how we've operationalized ABM, our specific ABM programs, and then diving into the metrics that we measure for success. So frequently we see marketers increasingly turning to ABM, and I think this has become a trend in the last couple of years as we've seen more and more of the traditional funnel approach be a disappointment to sales and marketing teams. We've seen lead volume not necessarily producing improvements in revenue. And really wanting to, by being able to align to how sales has always been selling by account, there's just been an increased amount of alignment between the teams and success. And being able to really focus your marketing resources on those accounts really most likely to convert is very appealing to us as marketers. What we really want is to be able to leverage data science and other technologies to really help accelerate that ABM strategy, and also be able to customize and personalize our approach to those key accounts. I like to think of ABM at the core of it is kind of the 80-20 rule. We all, in a traditional demand gen funnel, you know that 20% of your leads are producing your revenue. You know, how can we focus on just more and more of focusing on the demand that is producing revenue and save our resources and money of the last 80% that is not? So at the heart of it, I think this is a simple way of defining how we can just really hone in on those accounts that are most likely to convert by using our 80-20 rule. So that being said, knowing that ABM is a great approach given the challenges of traditional demand gen marketing, I'm going to share with you a little bit of the Radius ABM story and how, first off, how we set about operationalizing it between marketing and sales. We see this as a joint venture for our go-to-market strategy of how we attract, engage, and convert our accounts that are most likely to be our next successful customers. And first up, of course, is really operationalizing it. And this is an important part of the process to ensure that the rest of your programs and metrics are successful. And it's where we see a lot of folks struggle in terms of how do you get started, how do you ensure alignment, and how do you get your technology and operations in place for a successful ABM strategy. And one of the key elements to a successful strategy is really figuring out what accounts to go after in the first place. And without this, I think the rest of it will be flawed. If you're an ABM strategy that's targeted at the wrong accounts at the get-go is just unfortunately failed for any success in the future. So this particular topic is near and dear to my heart, and I found this quote from a friend, Craig Rosenberg, may know him as the funnelaholic, that came across my Twitter feed of, it's amazing how important and complicated account selection is in account-based everything. And this received an amazing amount of engagement on Twitter, and I thought it really resonated with me of the importance of this part of the process. And, there's varying degrees of how you can go about your account selection and varying models of maturity of how you might go about it. And what that looks like is, some folks at the very get-go start with, a basic target account list. So In the most basic sense, your sales team may just have a target account list of accounts they've sold into in the past, or brand names they might know, or so that's at the very core. That's kind of the first start. And then as people progress in their strategy, they align with sales and marketing to really come up with account selection. So marketing bringing the strategy aspects to the table of what accounts may be most likely to convert, understanding our ICP, and then working with sales to vet that based off of what they're hearing on the street. And then as we get even more mature, really leveraging data science and insights to help create that strategy. So as you analyze your own customer base, really looking at what types of industries, what types of key technologies, and common attributes around your successful customers that you can apply to your prospects. And then finally, the most mature of those companies are really leveraging Predictive to drive account selection. So instead of manually going through this process, really being able to use third-party data that helps with the attribute fulfillment on those key target accounts and helps automate that process. I myself started out on the least mature part of the model when I first did account-based marketing, and I tell you, it's not fun and it's not very scalable. So this is where I became really passionate about Predictive and the value that it can really bring to the account selection process of not only bringing me a more scalable approach, but a lot more effective approach to my account selection process. We also, an important part of operationalizing this is making sure that you have the right tech stack in place. And lots of vendors are out there trying to tie into the ABM Tech Stack. This is at the core what our Radius ABM Tech Stack looks like from just our core elements that we're using. So using Radius for our account selection, defining those tiered accounts within our Salesforce instance, using Marketo to make sure we are attracting, engaging, and routing our target account leads to our team, and then using things like Optimizely and Demand-Based to help personalize and target those key accounts as well. We also use leverage technologies such as Visible and Lean data to help support our strategies, in addition to these core technologies. There's a lot of questions around how you should get started. A lot of technologies out there that claim they support ABM, and I have three things that through my experience I've learned through building the ABM Tech Stack that I would recommend. And one is really to first start with your strategy and add technologies that will really help automate and support your individual ABM approach. By doing this, you're really avoiding just adding technologies that will add more overhead and perhaps not be supportive of the process. And two, your core tech stack should be configured to support ABM. So rather than plugging in new technologies, making sure that your CRM, marketing automation technologies, are aligned around an account-based approach. So that's doing things like customizing Salesforce to make sure that you have tiered accounts on the account level within Salesforce. Things like that that you need to modify to really make sure that your systems are in place. And lastly, ensure that any new additions to your tech stack really work together with your existing tech stack. This is a fun quote by David Rabb, who I like. It really resonated with me that the relationship between ABM and Predictive is really unnecessary to lay out, in his opinion, that Predictive helps marketers find accounts and ABM helps them reach them. And at Radius, this is the process we go through. This is actually a chart that is from my Director of Marketing Operations, Leah Allen. that she goes through quarterly and works with the sales as well as operations team to really make sure that our account selection is set up well on a quarterly basis. And I'll let this be a takeaway if anyone really wants the nuts and bolts of how you might set this up, but goes through each of the steps on how we align with sales and really figure out our target account list process on a quarterly basis. I like to think of a bit of an art and a science approach where we're definitely leveraging technology to help us provide quality account selection, but also integrating the art of aligning with our sales team to make sure their input, as well as others in the organization, are have that involved as well. Part of our account selection process, this will give you a little bit of insight into what account selection can look like without leveraging Predictive. So you may have the basic information in your marketing automation or Salesforce data, which we hopefully even have here, of normalized industry, location, employee count information, and revenue. And this may not really give us a whole lot of information on the success that these companies could provide for us being target customers. But as you apply things like Radius or Predictive or have all this data at your fingertips to help you not only have these attributes but also calculate success based off your past successes, your database may look a lot more like this, where we are able to understand what kind of marketing automation technologies, what kind of other key technologies they may use that would impact their ability to be a successful customer for you, as well as intent data such as changes in their company that may be triggers for being a target buyer for your organization. And these have all been proven to be incredibly successful at providing a much more targeted list. This is what as a snapshot, our Radius ABM program looks like. We have tiered our accounts based off of A, B, and C. So you'll find in our Salesforce instance there is on each account record, whether they're A, B, or C, or potentially D, which is not a target for Radius. And then there's alignment around what these tiers mean for us as a sales and marketing organization. For the sales organization, they are looking at Tier A account as their cream of the crop, 20 to 30 accounts, and that we're really targeting that are the best ICP for us as an organization. On the marketing side, we are considering these where we make the most friends with sales if we send them over, right? So these are where we really want to help sales engage, and we're willing to spend more marketing dollars and resources and personalization to make sure that we're engaging with these Tier A accounts so we can align the best with sales. On the B side, the prospects are a larger pool, and in our case we have 200 of these accounts per account executive. And we'll use this data to help prioritize programs, event selection, to make sure that we are getting sales in front of the A and B accounts, but we aren't necessarily spending as much high dollar amounts on these accounts as we are the A's. And then finally, C's is the bucket list of potential targets, but maybe not as high targets as certainly as fitting the ICP as the A and B's. And this list has again come up with, in our case, using Radius to help look at our segmentation by territory and using data science to really help us come up with who falls in these buckets and meets our ideal customer profile for Radius. Finally, once we have that target account list, we lay the accounts over our geographies to help us understand our territory management planning. We also use this data to help us do field event planning, so we understand if we pick certain cities, we'll have a larger pool and a larger ability to be successful based off of the number of target accounts that are in each of these territories, and really helps us make sure that we are driving the most ROI for each of our programs. So in my mind, this is where we get to the fun part now. So we've operationalized our ABM strategy, and now we get to go to how we actually execute ABM programs. So this is different than traditional lead gen, and we need to think about it differently. So you're almost taking somewhat of an outbound approach. If we already know what accounts we want to go after, how do we attract, engage, and convert those accounts? And as we look at our buyer's journey, we definitely find success with a multi-channel approach. So for any given account, if we look through how they got from a lead all the way through a successful customer, they've done anywhere from 8 to 20 engagements with us across various channels to educate themselves and engage with Radius. So what I want to do is really replicate that for my target accounts and really provide a multi-channel ABM strategy. So from there, the team really looks at a planning process and takes the framework of what accounts we have in place and where we found success in the past, and really plans out what types of events and programs they're going to do. And I've been really impressed with what kind of clever ideas and engaging and successful programs they've really come up with using this strategy. So I can go through a few of these. One of them is around the awareness there. So how do we attract those target accounts to Radius to begin with and get in front of them, get brand awareness, drive them to our website? So we do leverage demand-based, account-based marketing technology, and we take our target account list and use their technology to target just advertising to those key accounts. We also personalize the creative with their company name to make it even more engaging for our key account list. For us, we've seen a 33% increase in account engagement in just 1 month, which has been really exciting to see. We also use Radius's integration with Facebook to help accelerate our Facebook campaign results by being able to match our audience to the Facebook custom audiences. We're able to match at a much more extreme rate than we were prior to having this custom audience ability with Radius. And so far we've seen really great results in terms of making sure that we're still getting in front of those target accounts where we weren't before. The team has also set up a Slack integration where we are able to, as we're creating this demand, we want to make sure sales is for sure getting in front of these key accounts as they're coming in. And they want to know about them. If we're delivering a key account lead, they are of the utmost importance to our sales team. So we've actually created a Slack ABM channel so that any lead that comes in that's marked as a Radius target account actually gets pinged to the ABM Slack channel, and the rep is handled in the Slack notifications so that they are never missing out on a target account lead. Another fun example is the programs team here has looked at how they can really execute on ABM from a larger mass marketing program approach. So this is something I get asked a lot, and it isn't a super straightforward answer, but there's questions around, how do you work with a webinar for an ABM approach? So they've come up with 2 key ways that they've done it, which has been pretty interesting. So one, here's an example of what we're calling a marketing-driven webinar. So it's a webinar in which case it's not necessarily driven by just a key account list, but has a spin on it that helps make it ABM friendly. So, for instance, we did a webinar in conjunction with our launch and had an executive roundtable discussion with our exec team. And the way the team approached this was leveraging our technology stack to not only focus on accounts that were in our ABM list that signed up for that webinar, accelerating those to our sales team, but also doing a personalized approach once those companies did make it into our funnel. So what they did was when the 20 or so accounts that came in that attended the webinar that were target accounts, they did a personalized message to them and just were really honest with them. Hey, we're reaching out because you are a key account of Radius, and we want to help make sure any of your questions are answered on this webinar, and got an amazing amount of responses and engagement with that high-touch approach. And another example of a webinar that's worked with an ABM approach is this one that the team is running with financial services organizations. So by being able to look at our target A and B account list and parsing it by industry, we're able to see there's a large majority or a good chunk of them, I should say, in financial services. So what the team did was created a webinar with one of our successful financial services organizations and did a specific campaign just to those key financial services organizations, in which case we can help provide them very specific industry-oriented content to help drive engagement and demand. And this is a little bit of an example of kind of the workflow changes that are a bit different when you have a ABM-focused webinar strategy, in which case you're leveraging a little bit of a different workflow and focusing in on some key areas of the technology stack. So that gives you a little bit of idea of some of the programs that we have used to help support our ABM strategy. And always near and dear and important to all of our demand gen marketers' hearts is metrics. And this is definitely an area that is a challenge when moving from a traditional lead gen model to ABM. Is it's hard to walk away from lead volume. Really not what you're focused on with ABM. You're focused on, in our case, opportunity generation, revenue generation with our ABM programs. So a few things that we really look at when measuring success of ABM is focusing on coverage of targeted persona for our ABM accounts. So, from an operationalizing perspective, are we doing a good job of making sure that we have our 5 personas per target account for sales to work with and are engaging with them? And are we increasing the funnel velocity of our deal sizes by focusing on these target accounts? Increases in average sales price, I've seen at the last 3 organizations I've implemented this at, and also improve in close rates for the sales team themselves. So I think every organization needs to really come together to figure out how they're going to measure success with ABM. And it may be different, and create an educational process between sales and marketing to move away from what may traditionally be the MQL volume or raw lead volume, and more focused on further down the funnel and opportunities, revenue, and sales velocity. So I also mentioned that Radius is a part of the Account-Based Marketing Leadership Alliance with several other vendors. This is an organization that or an alliance, I should say, that is focused on really putting together best practices and research around ABM and helping companies be successful with ABM. We have various workshops, a website, etc., on best, and also ensuring that there's integrations between technologies to help marketers be successful with ABM. So with that, I want to thank you, and we'll take any questions.
Thank you so much, Sherry. That was a great presentation. And we have received lots of very good questions from attendees, so let's go right to some of them right now. The first question is from Dara, who is asking, how are you describing ABM as different from traditional outbound marketing? What are the key differences?
Sure, great question. So with traditional marketing, outbound marketing, I think we're, a lot of traditional outbound marketing has been really focused on the sales side. So, how sales can prospect into specific accounts, where account-based marketing is really sales and marketing coming together to make sure those touch points are aligned across our organization. And when I look at the buyer's journeys, I find it really interesting. A buyer doesn't necessarily think, oh, I'm now being touched by marketing, now I'm touched by sales. They know that they're just being engaged with by Radius as a whole, whether it's an SDR calling them, whether it's a prospecting email from marketing. It's still all one organization. And I think that's where ABM really shines and it helps companies, organizations be successful by really looking at the buyer's journey in one holistic approach to sales and marketing, helping surround these accounts.
Fantastic. Another listener, Matthew, wants to know, what if we already have target accounts that our sales reps have basically identified? How should we migrate to using an ABM technology to source accounts with that already in place?
Sure. So, and this is, I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, this is how I started out, and it is kind of the first step of account selection where people usually start out. And honestly, most organizations, any organization I've actually ever engaged with, sales has a target account list of some sort. Where you can really help mature is really the next step is really aligning with sales and helping provide a more data-driven strategy to making that a target account list more mature using data. So while their target account lists typically on the sales side are derived from accounts they've sold into in the past or potentially companies that they have brand awareness from, they're not always, and that's not only the data points that you should be using to come up with your account-based marketing strategy. So by being able to bring to the table data science and understanding of your ideal customer profile, as well as more data around what is a successful customer for you as an organization, will really help mature that target account list and help you be more successful.
Okay, great. The next question from Harold is the ABM-focused webinar strategy that you described sounds like it was very effective. And so can you describe how you promoted the webinars to those very key accounts? Was it as hands-on and personalized?
Good question. So yeah, so the key accounts that we marketed the webinar to, I think one of the key factors of success was that the content is just so personalized to their individual needs. But secondarily, we had a multi-channel approach to engaging and registering those accounts. So there was invitations more broadly from the marketing team to invite those companies. Then there was more individual personalized engagements from the SDR team, as well as a call follow-up. So the other aspect is from an air cover perspective, we're able to use our targeted advertising between Facebook and things like demand-based to use advertising to help promote those webinars as well using an account-based approach.
Okay, great. And speaking of LinkedIn and Facebook, how important is ABM, how important is social media and utilizing social media for an ABM strategy? How much does that play into the strategy? Is it a big component? Yeah,
I definitely seen a lot of success with ensuring that we have trained and have engagement with our SDR team to help, especially with in our case, the Tier A accounts. They have LinkedIn connected with our target personas from these key accounts. They have followed them on Twitter so they can have more personalized conversations. So I think this is an aspect to me that I've found more success on a one-to-one basis on the SDR side. But it definitely, especially for companies selling into enterprise organizations, has been really effective.
Yeah, the social selling has become such a big part of the SDR's role.
Definitely.
And it looks like we have time for one more question, and this one's kind of a forward-thinking one. It sure seems clear ABM is a trend, and it's very hot right now. So what do you think, Sherry, will be the hot topic in 2017? That question is from Jane. What's the next year's hot topic?
Sure. So, yeah, in my mind, ABM has always been around. It's really just been on the sales side. So, as mentioned, sales has sold in and talked about selling and marketing by account for a long time. And now it's been a much more hot topic to really talk about how marketing plays a broader role and a more focused role in that process. I think in 2017 we will see a lot more focus on how ABM technologies really work together and truly provide value at helping enable organizations' ABM strategies. In 2017, I think it'll still be a very hot topic. It'll just have matured into a place where we're providing more value for the marketer.
Terrific. Okay, then. I wish we had time for more questions, but we will address those that we didn't get to in follow-up. Sherry and her team will be sure to follow up with all of the attendees who had questions. So I just wanted to thank Sherry again for sharing such great insights, and thank you to all of our attendees as well for joining us today. A reminder, today's webinar will be available on demand, so you can access it at any time and share it with your peers and colleagues. And then one last note, I wanted to alert everyone that we have our next session taking place today in the Lead Lifecycle series at 2 p.m. Leticia Rodriguez from Everstring will be discussing how to combat sales and marketing misalignment to maximize conversions. You can follow the link shown here to learn more about the session, or go to the DGR website and you will see the Lead Lifecycle series buttons there, and you can go there if you don't have time to jot down that address. We hope to see you there, and thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.